Photography has become an integral part of life. With its emergence, humanity gained a unique opportunity to preserve important life moments for many years. In this video, I invite you to take a fascinating journey into the past, made possible thanks to photographs from the last century. Enjoy watching. In a historic photo from 1918, a British tank crewman is seen releasing a homing pigeon through a special opening in the combat vehicle in France. Pigeons of the racing Homer breed became famous for their speed and loyalty to home. They delivered important messages to a special loft where a bell would ring upon landing, signaling a new message had arrived for relay to command. In the historic photo, two American soldiers are shown posing with 155mm artillery shells, which had ironic messages like "Easter eggs for Hitler" and "Happy Easter" written on them. The photograph was taken in Germany in 1945 and illustrates the characteristic dark humor of wartime. This was how soldiers greeted the enemy during holidays. Susan Peters began her acting career at the age of 19 and by 21 was nominated for an Oscar for a supporting role in the film Random Harvest. She was predicted to have a dazzling career, but in 1945, a tragic incident changed her life. During a hunting trip, the actress suffered a spinal injury that resulted in paralysis of her lower limbs. Despite all her efforts to continue working in the industry, including theater and television appearances, depression and declining health led to Susan Peters passing away at the age of 31, leaving behind a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 1967, Kathrine Switzer became the first woman to attempt to officially run the Boston Marathon, but the marathon organizers tried to stop her. When Switzer started with a bib number 261, race director Johnny Kelly and other officials tried to physically remove her and force her off the course. At that time, it was considered unacceptable for women to participate in marathons. Despite all obstacles, Switzer finished the race in 4 hours and 20 minutes, an important step in the fight for women's right to run marathon races. In August 1945, Soviet schoolchildren presented American Ambassador Averell Harriman with an exquisite wooden panel depicting the Great Seal of the United States. Almost 8 years later, a secret listening device was discovered inside the panel by accident. It turned out to be The Thing Endophone, developed by Soviet inventor Leon Theremin. This device allowed eavesdropping without an internal power source. Later, the Endophone was presented at the UN as evidence of Soviet intelligence activities. August Landmesser became known as the German worker who stood against the Nazi regime. In 1936, he refused to salute Hitler during the launch ceremony of the training ship Horst Wessel. He later married a Jewish woman and left the Nazi Party. August was charged with violating racial laws, and the court ordered him to divorce his wife. But Landmesser ignored this and remained true to his own beliefs. At the end of the 19th century, some Italian monks wore unusual mourning attire, which you can see on your screens. The most surprising element of this clothing was a mask that completely covered the face of the clergyman. In this photo, taken in 1928, a Soviet family from a rural village is captured. These people are listening to the radio for the first time in their lives, and judging by their expressions, they are deeply impressed. In 1962, during a test flight, George Card encountered a serious accident when the ejection system malfunctioned. Upon being ejected from the aircraft and following the fall, the test pilot sustained multiple injuries. However, despite them, George continued working in the aviation industry. In this photo, you can see a young woman bending under a special bar. The picture was taken in 1964 in one of Los Angeles' nightclubs. You might think the girl is participating in a flexibility contest, but in fact, she is performing the limbo dance, which originated in Trinidad and Tobago, and by the 1960s had become an integral part of US club culture. In this photograph, you can see a military dog handler standing next to a specially trained dog that delivered an important message during combat. Four-legged couriers, trained to carry messages, played a crucial role in military communication during World War I, as they could get through areas impassable for humans and deliver messages even under fire. In 1914, talented inventor Chester McDuffie introduced a revolutionary diving suit equipped with the ball bearings to allow joint movement. Despite weighing an impressive 250 kilograms, the suit enabled divers to move freely underwater and carry out complex tasks such as underwater repairs and seabed exploration. McDuffie's invention served as a prototype for more advanced diving equipment. Few know that after World War II, the automobile company BM was on the brink of bankruptcy. Its fate could have been very different if not for the release of the BM Isetta microcar. This unusual vehicle with a teardrop-shaped body was exceptionally economical, consuming less than 5 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers. This feature made the model incredibly popular and allowed BMW to avoid collapse in the difficult post-war period. In 1917, a photographer captured a unique shot that shows the parallel movement of a traditional horse-drawn carriage and a modern city tram on one of Manhattan's busy streets. This image clearly illustrates the transitional period in the development of urban transport in New York, when old-fashioned modes of travel still coexisted with new public transport technologies. In 1953, a famous photo session of 19-year-old Brigitte Bardot took place on the beach in Cannes. In these images, the future star posed in what was considered a shocking outfit at the time, a floral bikini. The shots from this session not only made Bardot famous, but it also played an important role in popularizing the bikini, which in the 1950s was still seen as a rather bold item of clothing. This vintage photo was taken in 1890. It shows an elderly woman working at a spinning wheel in County Galway in Western Ireland. Thanks to the photographer's work, over a century later, we can closely observe the traditional wool spinning process, which was an essential part of domestic life in rural areas at the time, as well as the elements of folk costume and the everyday life of Irish women. The famous photograph taken by Gerald Waller in 1946 captured a touching moment in an Austrian orphanage. In it, we see a 5-year-old boy who had survived the war hugging a new pair of shoes. This photograph was published in Life magazine and shows the genuine joy of a child receiving a gift from the Red Cross, even though the shoes likely didn't fit him. The picture became a true symbol of post-war hardship and human kindness. In this photo, we see a Jesse Owens crossing the finish line in his victorious 100-meter race at the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. This man managed to set a world record, running the distance in 10.2 seconds. This historic image became a symbol of human spirit and equality, as Owens, despite Nazi prejudice, won 4 gold medals within 45 minutes, challenging the Nazi theory of Aryan racial superiority. A historic photograph from the early 20th century shows 2 Native American horsemen. The image clearly displays characteristic elements of traditional clothing and gear, allowing us to imagine how members of indigenous tribes looked in everyday life while practicing their traditional crafts. On June 6, 1944, Robert Capa, being the only photojournalist in the epicenter of events, landed on Omaha Beach with Allied troops and captured the dramatic moments of this event. During his time under fire, he took about 11 photos that documented the heroism of the soldiers during one of the largest amphibious operations in history. Despite mortal danger and a panic attack, Capa continued shooting, striving to convey the full intensity of the Allied landing on occupied French territory. In this touching photograph, a little girl is captured sitting among the ruins of her home in London, which was destroyed during a German bombing in 1940. Despite the tragedy and loss of shelter, the child clings to her favorite doll, a symbol of childhood and hope in the terrible years of war. The photograph became a powerful testimony to the horrors of war, showing its impact on the most defenseless, children. In the historic photo by Burton Holmes, 3 athletes are shown preparing to participate in the first Olympic marathon at the 1896 Games in Athens. In the center of the image is Kyrillaos Vasilakos, a Greek track and field athlete who shortly before had won the qualifying race with a time of 3 hours and 18 minutes. This shot became an important witness to the revival of marathon running as an Olympic sport. The photograph from 1918 immortalized a tragic moment when British soldiers affected by a gas attack were making their way to a dressing station in Croatia during the Battle of Albert. Each wounded man had a bandage over his eyes and held on to the shoulder of the man in front to avoid getting lost. Despite their blindness, they continued to carry their rifles and gas mask bags on their backs. On Mount Rushmore, in the state of South Dakota, is a famous bas-relief featuring portraits of 4 U.S. presidents: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. The creation of this monumental work of art lasted from 1927 to 1941, under the direction of sculptor Gutzon Borglum, with the participation of about 400 workers. Each portrait is 18 meters high and was carved by hand. This photo captures teenagers from the 1950s. Thanks to this photograph, we can see how their appearance differed from that of modern youth. This historic photograph captured the dramatic events of August 1968, when the Warsaw Pact troops, including Soviet tanks, entered Prague as part of Operation Danube. This moment became a symbol of the end of the Prague Spring and the beginnings of a new chapter in Czechoslovakian history, marked by local protests and tragic losses. In 1938, a special type of baby stroller appeared in England, developed by the F.W. Mills Company specifically to protect children from potential gas attacks. This gas-proof stroller was a sealed construction with an iron lid, inside which a special baby cot was placed, and the air was filtered through an asbestos system. The photo shows an unusual game of volleyball. Young people gathered on Venice Beach in California decided to play with the ball on stilts. On June 6, 1944, a crowd of New Yorkers gathered in Times Square to hear the latest news about the Allied landing in Normandy. People watched anxiously as the electronic sign of the Times newspaper displayed the first messages about Operation Overlord, in which British and Canadian servicemen participated alongside American troops. This photograph captures the moment of the first large-scale archaeological research of the Great Sphinx in Giza. These excavations allowed scientists to discover important artifacts, including the famous Dream Stela between the Sphinx's paws, and laid the foundation for future studies of this unique monument of antiquity. This photo evokes touching emotions. In it, we see a World War II veteran who had sustained serious injuries. He stands holding his son's hand, looking at the Golden Gate Bridge, hoping that war will never happen again. In the 1880s, lumberjacks began cutting tunnels through the trunks of sequoia trees wide enough to allow carts, and later cars, to pass through. The idea originated after lightning struck one of the trees in Yosemite National Park, creating a large hole. Instead of removing the damaged tree, it was decided to turn the gap into a tunnel to attract tourists. The project was so successful that similar tunnels began to appear in other parks. However, such interventions proved harmful to the trees, and this practice was soon abandoned. Marilyn Monroe was an icon of beauty and style. She took part in numerous photo sessions, and in this image, we see her relaxing carefree on a U.S. beach after a film shoot. Airships were actively used not only as passenger transport, but also for military purposes. Typically, they were used to deliver various cargo, and in the US, they patrolled naval convoys and assisted in the detection of German submarines. This photograph was taken in 1951. In it, we see World War II veterans paying tribute to the fallen soldiers buried at Arlington Cemetery. The Arlington National Cemetery is located in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. It covers an area of over 2.5 square kilometers and is the final resting place of more than 400,000 people. Only war participants, decorated service members, U.S. presidents, and their family members are buried in this place of honor. In the charming photo from 1958, the legendary Audrey Hepburn is seen shopping in a Beverly Hills supermarket with an unusual companion, a young deer named Pippin. This unusual duo came about thanks to the filming of the movie Green Mansions, in which the actress played a forest nymph. To bond with the animal more closely, Audrey temporarily took the fawn into her home, caring for him as if he were a real member of the family. In the early 20th century, painting the Eiffel Tower was an extremely dangerous job. At first, circus performers were even hired for painting work, as very few people were willing to be at heights above 300 meters without special protection. The painting process included cleaning the surface of old paint, applying anti-corrosion coating, and finishing with a final paint. Today, the approach to safety has changed radically. Modern professionals are equipped with full sets of safety gear. Today, bananas are sold in every store, but that wasn't always the case. In this photo from 1905, an important event is captured. The first banana shipment to Norway, a batch weighing 3,000 kilograms, was carefully packed in special crates and boxes. Local residents gathered at the delivery site, eagerly awaiting a chance to taste these exotic fruits. Norway became the second country in Europe, after the United Kingdom, to begin importing bananas. This historic moment marked the beginning of banana distribution in the Scandinavian country and became a key milestone in the development of fruit imports in the region. In this photograph taken in 1919, a true British pride of the 20th century is captured. The R-33 airship, shown as it was being prepared for its first flight in the hangar of Barlow Aerodrome in Yorkshire. This air vehicle had fantastic dimensions. Its length was 196 meters and its diameter 24 meters. The R-33 became a major invention by the Armstrong-Whitworth Company. Later, it made more than 20 successful flights with a total duration of over 300 hours. In 1975, Arnold Schwarzenegger became the winner of the Mr. Olympia competition. At the time, the actor and athlete's physique was considered close to perfection. Standing at 188 centimeters tall, he had impressive measurements: biceps of 57 centimeters, chest of 145 centimeters, and his figure displayed a harmonious combination of muscle mass and definition. To this day, many men in bodybuilding still strive to achieve his proportions. In 1972, British-style icon Jenny Claire was photographed inside her compact mini-car. This shot was taken by chance, but it looks like a posed photo shoot for a car commercial. Everything about this image is perfect. The elegant mini dress pairs seamlessly with the compact modern car of that time, and the model herself looks relaxed and playful. The author of this photo is photographer Inge Morath. In 1957, as part of a piece about animal actors living in Manhattan mansions, he captured an unusual scene in Times Square: a llama named Linda sticking her head out of her trainer's car window after filming at the ABC television studio. This photo was taken in 1953 during the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. In it, we can see a table where a young girl is sitting completely alone. Some people suggest that the child was seated separately from the adults for her protection from possible infections. On January 21, 1986, a unique gathering of all British supersonic Concorde aircraft took place in one location: Heathrow Airport in London. This very event was captured in the photograph. The picture was taken to mark the 10th anniversary of the start of operation of these legendary aircraft, which became symbols of technological progress and innovation in the aviation industry. This photograph was taken in 1938. It shows a pearl diver preparing to dive into the Mississippi River using unusual homemade equipment. As a diving helmet, he used an old car gas tank with a garden hose. This allowed the man to dive to a depth of up to 21 meters and stay underwater for an hour and a half. In 1923, Davide Sislahi, a former electrician from Milan, created a unique one-wheeled motorcycle and patented his invention in France a year later. His vehicle had only one moving part, a large wheel with a pneumatic tire driven by an air-cooled engine, and it was equipped with a car-style steering wheel for control. This photograph captures the terrifying aftermath of the crash of the German airship Hindenburg. The picture was taken on May 6, 1937, by reporter Sam Scher and was included in the list of the 100 most important photographs, according to Time magazine. In it, we can see the once majestic airship reduced to rubble in just 34 seconds. Between 1930 and 1936, a series of catastrophic dust storms occurred in the state of Texas, known as the Texas Dust Bowl. The dust storms were caused by a combination of drought and poor farming practices. As a result, thousands of farmers lost their land, leading to mass migrations and serious economic losses. In the historic photograph from 1925, the famous police officer Smokey Buchanan is seen measuring the length of Betty Fringle's swimsuit on Palm Beach in Florida. Using a special measuring tape, he checked whether it complied with the strict decency rules of the time. Smokey Buchanan was considered a real champion among enforcers of beach morality. He conducted such checks daily, issuing fines for violations of established norms. In the early 20th century, researchers began studying the Moai statues located on Easter Island. Since then, these sculptures have become one of the most mysterious landmarks in the world. The photograph from 1886 shows the face of the Statue of Liberty during the period of its final preparations before installation in New York Harbor. It was taken before all parts of the monument were assembled. In the image, one can clearly see the facial features, which are believed to have been modeled after Charlotte Beres Bartholdi, the mother of sculptor Frederic Auguste Bartholdi, who created this majestic monument. On October 1, 1940, a touching photograph was taken in Canada. In it, we see all the sorrow of a little boy parting from his father, who, along with other men, was heading off to war. The child tries to grab his father's hand and bring him back home, but all his actions are in vain. And that is the tragedy captured in this shot. In a unique photograph from 1915, a moment of transporting Italian troops in the Alps is depicted. Using a complex system of pulleys and cables, the soldiers hoist an artillery gun into the mountains along with a serviceman and a service dog. Today, this image demonstrates the challenges of military operations in mountainous terrain during World War I and shows how the military managed to deliver essential weaponry to hard-to-reach areas. In 1950, the Coca-Cola Company launched a large-scale marketing campaign in France, during which local residents were offered to try the carbonated beverage for free. The reaction of the French to the new product was mixed. Some poured out the cola without even taking a sip, while others really liked its unusual taste. However, cola soon became very popular and began to be sold in stores and bars. In 1960, Ernest Hemingway organized a fishing tournament off the coast of Cuba. Fidel Castro, an avid fishing enthusiast, invited his comrade Che Guevara to participate in the competition, and although Che Guevara accepted the invitation, he did not share a love for fishing and, while waiting for a bite, read Stendhal's novel, The Red and the Black. Elvis Presley joined the military in March 1958. Despite already being a global superstar, he refused special treatment and served in the 3rd Armored Division of the U.S. Army on equal terms. Later, he did agree to certain privileges, such as living in an apartment and being able to see his loved ones occasionally. But this does not change the fact that he did not evade compulsory service, unlike many modern celebrities. In 1936, several children came together to care for the dog captured in this photo. The reason was that her owner had died suddenly and she was left alone. But the children didn't let her perish and surrounded the dog with love and support until the end of her days. This photograph demonstrates that safety measures during epidemics were followed not only during the coronavirus pandemic. In 1918, tram conductors in Seattle strictly monitored the mask mandate, not allowing passengers without protective masks to board public transport during the Spanish flu epidemic. This measure was introduced due to the high risk of infection in crowded public spaces and was one of the most important government recommendations for preventing virus spread. In an old cemetery in the Dutch city of Roermond, there is a unique tombstone of Colonel van Gorkum and his wife, whose stone sculptures are joined by hands through a brick wall separating them. This touching composition symbolizes the love of the couple who lived together for 38 years, despite being buried in different parts of the cemetery, Protestant and Catholic, due to religious reasons. In the famous photograph from 1914, Brooklyn Bridge workers are seen hanging dramatically from the steel cables during a break while painting them. The picture was taken by New York Department of Bridges photographer Eugene de Salignac, who happened upon the workers in this unusual pose. The image is considered a classic of early 20th century black and white photography and is often included in textbooks as an example of perfect composition. In 1903, Mary Harris Jones organized the famous Children's Protest March against the exploitation of underage factory and mine workers in Pennsylvania. A column of children walked more than 200 kilometers from Philadelphia to President Roosevelt's summer home in New York, carrying signs with slogans like, "We want to go to school, not to the mines." Although the meeting with the president never took place, this action drew public attention to the issue of child labor and contributed to the adoption of new laws limiting the exploitation of minors. This photo captures a meal at Disneyland Park. You'll agree that the actors in fairy tale costumes add a special atmosphere to this otherwise ordinary dining area. In a rare photograph from 1939, Albert Einstein is seen relaxing in Nassau Point, Long Island, wearing shorts, a sharp contrast to his usual image as a scientist in a formal suit. This photo reveals another side of the great physicist, a vet who wasn't afraid to defy social stereotypes and could allow himself to relax and let go of the academic persona. In the legendary photograph from 1899, Nikola Tesla is seen surrounded by an impressive spectacle, giant electrical discharges, in his laboratory in Colorado Springs. The image, which looks like a frame from a science fiction film, was created using double exposure. The photographer managed to capture a truly unique shot that documented not only a scientific experiment, but also created an eternal image of the brilliant inventor. Tokyo couriers of the 1930s demonstrated real mastery in their work. They skillfully balanced on bicycles with huge towers of food boxes, which sometimes reached 1.5 meters in height. Despite the potential risks, these couriers were known for their reliability and accuracy in deliveries. In 1885, in the jungles of Honduras, researchers discovered an ancient sculpture of the Mayan civilization, which became an important archaeological find. This statue marked the starting point of many large-scale excavations that gave scientists a wealth of information about this ancient advanced civilization. In the early 20th century, the profession of rat catcher was of great importance for the safety of European cities. As rats were the main source of dangerous infections, including bubonic plague, rat catchers caught rodents by hand using special traps and trained animals, often suffering bites that led to illness. Despite the dangers of the profession, they helped residents of European cities feel safe from infectious rodents. In this photo, Jewish prisoners are shown. On their faces, one can see immense joy and happiness as they were finally liberated and could continue their lives after everything they had endured. One of the most unusual examples in the history of weaponry is the giant hunting gun, the punt gun, whose length significantly exceeded a person's height. This massive weapon, with a caliber of up to 50 millimeters, was designed for hunting waterfowl and could hit several dozen ducks with a single shot. Due to its enormous weight and recoil, it could only be fired from a boat using special mounts. Red Cross dogs were specially trained rescuers who greatly assisted soldiers during World War I. They carried special bags with water, alcohol, and first aid supplies, and were trained to distinguish between friendly and enemy soldiers, which made them invaluable helpers on the battlefield. Thanks to their loyalty and courage, Red Cross dogs saved thousands of human lives. In 1941, immediately after the Axis powers invaded Yugoslavia, 16-year-old Albina Mali Hocevar joined the National Liberation Partisan Movement. Despite her young age, she handled her tasks remarkably well. However, already in 1942, the partisan was wounded for the first time in battle. In this photo, you see a touching reunion. This soldier went to war when his son was just over a year old, and now they were finally able to meet again. The photo captures a moment when a farmer from Essex paints white stripes on a cow's hide. This unusual practice was introduced during World War II to increase road safety. Striped cows became more visible to drivers in the dark, helping to avoid accidents. More than 100 people gathered near a giant sequoia to capture themselves in front of the natural giant. This photo highlights the fantastic size of the tree. It's worth noting that sequoias are among the longest living trees. Their lifespan can exceed 4,500 years, and their height can reach 115 meters. This photograph shows a migrant family. These people had just arrived in New York by ferry. They look into the distance at the big city with hope for a new and better life glowing inside them. And that's all from me for now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon. Your support is the best reward for me. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.